child was only 8, for Christ's sake. That bloody mother needed to be taught a lesson. To his shame, Colin had fancied Kelsey when she'd first moved in, before he'd found out what she was really like. Now he was disgusted with her, and with himself for making such a gross error of judgment. The woman was all tits and tattoos, flashing her eyes with a come-on expression at every bloke she passed. It was probably her tactics that had fooled him at the start, he thought. He'd be the first to admit he was ignorant when it came to women, shy, having only his mother as an example. But then he'd come to his senses and realised what she was like, and felt sorry for the child. What the social services were doing leaving Leila with her mother, Colin had no idea. Her older kids, 4 in all, had been taken into care and then adopted years ago. Probably for the best, he thought. She'd told him this when she'd first moved in, and that she was being given another chance with Leila because she was clean, off booze, drugs, and a game. That was laughable. It didn't take much to see she was lying, and the situation couldn't be allowed to continue. Kelsey's sister Sharon agreed. He'd seen her going into the flat and had stopped her and voiced his concerns. They'd agreed Leila needed help, and fast. But what to do for the best? Leaving the light off in his living room so he couldn't be seen from outside, Colin kept watch on the play area. Leila continued to gently work the swing in the gloom as 2 teenage lads rode in on their mountain bikes. Aged about 13, they were known on the estate for selling drugs for their rich dealer. Kelsey bought her stuff from them. Colin knew that residents had largely given up on calling the police. It was a waste of time and created bad feelings, as the mothers of the boys lived on the estate too, as did most of their customers. If the police were called, the lads were usually tipped off and had long gone by the time they arrived, pedalling at speed down the alleyways that linked the estate, where the police car couldn't go. He'd watched it happen from his window. It was a game to them, although the one having the biggest laugh would be the dealer, who was making big money out of these runts. The lads took up their usual place in front of the row of sheds where the bins were kept, standing astride their bikes so they could clear off quickly if necessary. A man appeared from the shadows, hoodie up, money at the ready. The deal was done in seconds, and he hurried off again. A minute later, the next customer arrived, and then the next, a steady procession of druggies desperate for their next fix. It was no place for a child, Colin thought again, his anger and concern growing. Most of the customers ignored Leila, but a few didn't, and she was forced to fend off their unwanted attention as best she could. Colin had seen enough. Grabbing his keys from the table and stuffing them into his pocket, he left the flat. It was time to act. 2. Kelsey heard the front door of the flat below slam shut. The walls, ceilings and floors were so thin, you could almost hear someone having a shit. She guessed most of her neighbours could hear the goings-on in her flat, but what the hell? That was her business. In the small light coming from the hall, Kelsey looked at the man lying next to her in bed, whose name she couldn't remember, if she ever knew it. He was proving difficult to get rid of, and had become angry and aggressive when she'd told him it was time to go. She'd managed to pacify him with more rough sex, and thankfully he'd fallen asleep and was now flat on his back, snoring like a pig. But she still had the problem of getting rid of him. Just because they paid, some clients thought they could do what they wanted, which they could within reason, consenting adults and all that, but it didn't mean they could stay for as long as they wanted. Once the job was done and their time was up, she couldn't get rid of them fast enough. Some took liberties. A few guys just wanted to talk after having sex, which was a pain, but manageable. But the big blokes, alpha males, could easily become abusive if they didn't get their way. Too much testosterone, Kelsey thought. Fine for getting it up, but not so good for putting it away and going home. This one would need some help.